Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypherbox bringing you the latest in boxing news. Now, basically what I want to talk about in this video, you can see it on the screen yourself, is the Bellew versus Haye 2 rematch press conference. It's their first press conference, the usual that you would do before the trainers go into training. And what do I say about this one? We all saw the last fight and the build up to the last fight, and that was extremely heated. You know, there was a lot of talking and a lot of, you know, shouting over each other and a lot of personal insults being thrown at one another. David Haye telling even Eddie Hearn that once he's done with Bellew, he's going to take on his prized possession, his cash cow in Anthony Joshua, and knock him out and end Matchroom and, you know, bring him to their downfall. Eddie Hearn gave a bit back and said, you just worry about yourself and stuff like that. At the same time, you had Bellew mocking Haye in that first one, regards to from his haircut to him being on, you know, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the old TV show. Don't know if it still goes on, I don't really watch TV, but him talking about how he wanted to be an actor one day, a Hollywood actor, and poking fun at him. And it was all entertaining, it was all trash talk. And we even saw the face-off, when they faced off with each other, David, you know, got a bit intense between them, where David Haye just clipped him, nicked him on the chin. I don't think it was a full punch because he got pulled back and pushed back, etc. and stuff like that. And as he's walking off shouting, you're getting knocked out, you're getting knocked out, and Bellew saying, oh, is that how it is? You want to punch me in the face, you want to punch me in the face. You remember all of that sort of stuff. It was great to watch. This press conference, a little different, a little bit more subdued, quieter. There wasn't any of this ranting or raving or shouting, but intense. It was very, very intense. You could cut the tension with a knife. So it was probably the opposite to what we saw last time, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that David Haye has had to learn to kind of humble himself a little bit. Because let's face it, he lost. Regardless of how we all saw it, even I said it, you know, Tony Bellew beat a one-legged guy. But I also said that in the first 5 rounds, I had Tony Bellew winning the fight anyway. And I think we don't know what would have happened later on, whether David Haye would have stopped him or won the fight. But I think if you look at it, you potentially think about it, it would have... David Haye's not known for his stamina and his durability in that sense, in terms of going the distance. And I think Tony would have probably grinded him down and probably would have picked it up on points the way he was boxing, with a smooth counter punching, the intelligent boxing that he was using in the ring. But you don't know, David Haye could have even won the fight and he could have got a knockout. So it's one of those fights that there's unanswered questions. You know, hats off to Tony Bellew. He did what he was supposed to do, he did his job and he got the win. You know, David Haye did have an injury. We know David Haye had an injury that played a massive part in it. And the funny thing, at this press conference, Tony Bellew himself acknowledged that I know David was injured, played a massive part in it, etc. And it's true, because if you're killing, I've said this before, if you can't put weight on your feet or on one of your feet, how are you supposed to distribute, you know, power? You know, how are you supposed to create momentum, to create power in your punch, balance as well? How are you supposed to keep yourself well balanced so you can throw those punches? It's, you know, David Haye went into defensive mode, we know that. I think Tony Bellew acknowledged that. He also not acknowledged that, you know, it was a massive amount. So he saw immense bravery from David Haye. And I think we all can agree that David Haye showed a lot of heart to keep going, and he would have kept on going if the towel didn't get thrown in, let's be honest. David Haye respectfully gave credit to Tony Bellew. He got the win. He was asked, like, do you respect him? Well, of course I respect him. Once you've been in the ring with someone, you know, with both fighters. So yeah, I have earned a level of respect for Tony Bellew. I don't think Tony's too convinced by that though. And I saw the interviews after the fight with IFL and Kugan Cassius, and Tony Bellew is not convinced that David Haye respects him or acknowledges him. Part of me kind of agrees with Tony Bellew there, because when you were sitting there watching David Haye, he looked agitated to me. He looked frustrated at the fact that he was sitting there at this press conference and he was the B-side. That Tony Bellew was the A-side, and rightfully so. Tony won the last fight, so he rightfully, he's the A-side. You know, he said in the IFL interview afterwards saying that he didn't really care about all that. He didn't care about coming in first or second for the press conference or even for the fight. He didn't. He said, I didn't care about any of that. You know, I'm a down-to-earth sort of person. But Eddie Hearn turned around and said, no, you won the first fight, so I'm going to make sure you get all the luxuries of an A-side fighter. And that's exactly what he got, and fair enough. When David Haye was talking, he referred to the first fight, basically it referred to it as a bank robbery. He used the example that, you know, a robber will go to a bank and he will, you know, they'll rob the bank successfully, make a whole load of money, and should ride off into the sunset. You know, but the second time round, you know, you might come back and basically rob the bank again. So the second time round, you know, there'll be more security in place, the safe might have moved, you know, the personnel might have changed, etc. All those sort of things that a bank would do if they seriously got robbed. And that's what he was basically referring to the first fight, was that it was pretty much robbery. So in Tony Bellew's eye, he saw that as him saying it was a fluke. I think David Haye, what he actually probably meant, you know, he may have meant that, but I honestly believe David Haye thought, what his thought process was with that was basically that the first time round, you beat me, fair enough. You know, you beat the bank. That's fair enough. I'm not saying it was a fluke. What I'm saying is that the second time round you come to rob the bank, it's not going to be the same as the first time. You know, the first time you came to rob the bank and take the money from the bank and steal money from the bank, you know, fine, you were successful in that. But don't come with the same approach, because if you come with the same approach, you're going to find that things are different and things have changed. That's what I think David Haye meant by that. I don't think he was, you know, trying to say that the first fight was a fluke and that, you know, you were lucky to get that result. Why did you? And then he was asking the question, why would you come back and rob the bank again? You know, you beat me fair and square. You said that your motivation for the first fight was to secure your family's future. You did that. You're a multi-millionaire now. You got millions in the bank. So what's your motivation to come back? And I will get to what Tony Bellew said, but Tony Bellew took that example of robbing the bank as if he was stating you fluked it the first time round, and the second time round you won't fluke it. I think David Haye meant was the first time round you successfully robbed the bank, you beat me fair and square, and the second time round now when you come around, you know, you better take a different approach, because things will have changed. Just like a bank, it will change its process and its procedures from a security point of view. And that's what I think he meant by it. You know, that I'm not going to be the same. I'm not going to be the David Haye that was in the last fight. You're going to see a different David Haye. You're going to see, you know, a slimmer, faster, quicker David Haye. You know, whatever he's working on. So I think people have taken the wrong end and stick with that one from my point of view. That's how I think he meant it. But I do think it does kill him. You know, Tony Bellew irritates David Haye. You could tell it. You could tell neither one of these guys like each other at all. But end of the day, you know, that's what makes this matchup so great. Is because, you know, we've got this rivalry between these two individuals who just, you know, hate each other. You know, they do not like each other. They're never going to get along. We know that. But yeah, Tony Bellew then came back and said, basically said that he wanted to know, you want to know what motivates me, and he said it's the same thing: get home safe and sound to my kids, just like last time, and that's it, and get the win. That's it. That's the only thing that motivates me. You know, and I think David Haye is still struggling to understand why has this guy come back around, and you know, maybe I think, to be fair, I think Tony's motivation for this fight is that he's got a lot of stick from the first fight. Yeah, the first 4 or 5 rounds, even the early parts of the 6th round before the injury occurred, Tony Bellew was, in my opinion, winning the fight, and he was outboxing David Haye. He was outthinking him, outsmarting him. Yeah, David Haye was rushed. I did say that David was rushing him. He was rushing in. He was looking for that quick knockout because he had an injury, and he was worried that it was going to get worse in this fight. So he wanted to get Bellew out there as quick as possible. But at the same time, Tony, he did box beautifully. Anyone who knows boxing, when you were watching it, there was these cute counter punches going on. He was making David Haye miss. There was even that one where he threw a left hook and David went off balance and went into the ropes. And you know, you got to be honest. You know, if you're a David Haye fan, you have to be honest. Yeah, but at the same time, you have to be honest as well if you're a Tony Bellew fan, because that injury happened, and we don't know what would have happened later on. I think Tony Bellew might have outboxed and won the fight on points, but David Haye could have easily knocked him out as well and stopped him and won the fight. So we don't know what's going to happen because of that injury that happened halfway through the fight, and it all became the Tony Bellew show after that, literally, where David Haye was just hanging on and trying to make it to the end of the fight and hoping that he could get a knockout punch and maybe win the fight like that. So going back to my opinion of Tony Bellew's motivation for this fight is he got a lot of stick for it, and he's still getting a lot of stick now for it, you know, regarding this regarding the first fight, because people believe he was lucky because David Haye injured himself. But if you know your boxing and you watch that early, you know, the first 5 rounds, you would see what Tony was doing. He was being very smart, showing a lot of intelligence. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought, wow. You know, he showed that he's a talented individual. He's an intelligent boxer. There's no doubt about it. Leaning back, making David miss, coming back with counters, uppercuts, you know, left hooks, you know, sending David into the ropes. He was being smart. He was being very smart and using the ring very well. And you've got to give credit where credit's due. I'm sorry, you do. But that's why I think Tony Bellew wants this rematch, is because he wants to, you know, wants a definitive decision this time. You know, he wants people to see a fully fit David Haye. He doesn't want him to get injured this time. A fully fit David Haye, and he wants to convincingly beat him and leave no question and no doubts in anyone's mind that he is better than David Haye at this moment in time. He's openly admitted if it was 10 years ago and he fought David Haye, he would lose to David Haye. But the David Haye of now that we have now, you know, he firmly believes he's better than him and he'll beat him every time. And he wants to prove that the first fight wasn't just down to that injury that David had sustained. He wants to prove that he's, you know, that without that injury, he can still beat David Haye, a fully fit David Haye. That brings me on to the next bit of the video about that injury. And we do need to talk about it. Now, the one thing I've always said is that once you're injury prone, you're always injury prone. You know, I used to play a lot of football when I was younger. I've worked out, you know, from my early 20s up to now, you know, lifting weights, even, you know, boxing and stuff like that. And the one thing I know full well is that once you pick up an injury, you know, that injury never really leaves you. It's always there. You know, it will always come back as a little niggle or a little pull, etc. You know, I've got real bad shoulders and bad hands from my boxing, and they always come back. You know, my shoulder injury always comes back. You know, my hands, the problems I have with my hands, you know, they come and go. You know, you'll never, as a fighter, especially as a fighter, if you've picked up injuries, you never fully recover from those injuries. They're always with you. It's like if you had a broken hand once, you'll always feel that little bit of pain in your hand or that discomfort, etc. and stuff like that, because sometimes these things never fully heal. So, and most times they don't, especially if you're a professional fighter or a professional athlete. You know, they'll always come back to haunt you. And regarding to David's physical capabilities, you got to remember, he's seven months older now since that last fight, 7-8 months, whatever it's been. You know, he's not the same David Haye he was 10 years ago that fought, you know, or a few years ago that fought Derek Chisora, you know, or Vladimir Klitschko, or, you know, what he accomplished as a cruiserweight. You know, this is the David Haye now. He's going to be what? He said he's going to be 37 next week, David Haye. So, you know, Father Time has caught up with him. And the older you get, you know, the less your body can take. And especially as a fighter, the less your body can take. So how much more can David Haye's body take? Will his body give out again? Now, Tony Bellew this time, I think Tony Bellew this time is hoping. Last time he was, you know, saying that it's going to give out, and we're not banking on it, but we reckon it will, and we'll capitalise on that. This time round, he doesn't want that to happen, because he's learnt from the first fight, well, that happened, and no one's giving me the credit I deserve. So he wants a fully fit David Haye this time. My bit on that is that I think you could potentially see, don't be surprised if you see another injury from David Haye. I'm not going to lie. And the reason I say that is, like I said, he's injury prone. He's retired, he came back. Since he's come back, his last fight, before Tony Bellew, his last serious fight was against Derek Chisora. Since he's come back, since that Derek Chisora fight, he's had one serious opponent or contender to go up against, and that's Tony Bellew. So, you know, Tony Bellew's had more competitive fights over the last few years. So, who's more ring ready? Tony Bellew is. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I'm not saying David Haye can't win the fight, but I think it might be tougher than he thinks, in my opinion. So the question is, will David Haye's body hold up in the rematch? You know, he definitely looks slimmer. When you look at Tony Bellew looks like Tony Bellew always looks. You know, he always pokes fun at himself that he's a fat boy. But he'll slim down a little bit and get himself in shape, of course he will, but you know, he won't look I don't think he'll look any different than he did in the last fight. David Haye will be. He already looks slimmer. In the last fight, Shane McGuigan told him to embrace his natural weight, which was a big problem for him because there was too much weight there. You could see he was too big, too heavy. His feet were always constantly planted. He didn't have that quickness to him that we've seen from David Haye in the past. You know, he wasn't able to get in and out. The agility wasn't there. He was built for pure power, and for that fight to knock, just to simply one punch knockout. You know, he wasn't built for, you know, a 12-round fight. You know, and that was probably a little bit of arrogance on his part. Shane McGuigan, I reckon, got the tactics wrong there in terms of the weight. I was expecting David Haye to come in a bit slimmer, faster, quicker, and we didn't see that. In this fight, I think we will see that. I think David will trim down the weight. He'll come in to that, kind of like that when he first jumped up to heavyweight. You know, where he looked that cross between cruiserweight and heavyweight, where he was just entering his heavyweight years. And I think he'll go back to that because, you know, he will, now for this fight, he will need to adopt that speed and that agility. He's already said he believes it's not going to go 12 rounds. He believes Tony Bellew won't see the end of the fight. He says when that happens, I don't know when that's going to happen. Whether it happens on the 10th, 11th, 12th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, he's not making predictions like he did last time. He just knows he can't. He's not going to allow Tony to see the end of the fight. Tony Bellew said the same thing. But David Haye will come in slimmer. He needs to change his tactics. He knows that. He can't do the same thing he did last time. Tony Bellew, on the other hand, I kind of see where Tony Bellew's coming with the points he made about David Haye's endurance. He says his stamina, you know, isn't great. That's why he's a gunslinger who, you know, usually wins his fights in the first few rounds by knocking his opponents out. He doesn't go the distance. When he has gone the distance with Carl Thompson at cruiserweight, with Vladimir Klitschko, he falls apart. He becomes irritated, he becomes frustrated, and he starts making mistakes. And he goes, that's what I'm banking on. I'm not someone who you're just going to be able to walk through in the first few rounds. You're going to have to go the distance with me. And when I take you to the later rounds, that's when you'll start falling apart. You know, and he'll start using his ring intelligence, his smarts, which is what his plan in the first fight was, to take him deep into the deep waters, and that's when David Haye starts falling apart. And I agree with that we haven't seen David Haye go a whole 12 rounds and just outbox. And do you know what I mean? He's a knockout artist. He always has been. He's been a finisher and a quick finisher on most occasions. But in this fight, David, I think, you know, I don't think I'll be really surprised if there's a knockout in this fight. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see an injury from David Haye. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all if that happens. But I don't see a knockout. I think this will go to the decision. I think it will go it'll be a points victory. Who for? I don't know. It depends how David Haye comes out. If David Haye comes out to box each round, to win round after round after round, like his trainer, you know, Ismail Salas said, you know, one round at a time, you know, and I think Ismail Salas will be saying to David Haye, hey, forget the knockout. If it comes, it comes. We're gonna train for round by round, for one round at a time. You're gonna go in there, you're gonna outbox him, you're gonna outquick it, outspeed him, you're gonna beat him to the punch, you're gonna box. And you box round by round, and if the knockout comes, then great. If not, we'll win it on points. I think that's what Ismail Salas will say to him. And I think David Haye will probably need to realise that he's not a young David Haye, he's an old David Haye now. And it's probably the best move, is to just look to outbox Tony Bellew and win one round at a time and win it on decisions. If the knockout comes, great. Same with Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew won't want to do too much different from what he did last time, but he needs to understand that it'll be a different David Haye that's coming at him. And you know, he needs to be prepared, and he needs to be prepared for a David Haye who might be patient and look to box him. Because the last time he was, you know, we know what David Haye is like. He likes to come out and put it on his opponents and knock him out. He's always been like that. And in the first fight, he was so irritated by Tony Bellew, he just wanted to dismiss him and say, you're nothing, mate. I want to get you out of there and then move on to Anthony Joshua. And because he was so frustrated, he thought, I want to come in there. And he was injured as well, and he wanted to come in there and knock him out. Tony Bellew sensed that. And it played into Tony Bellew's hand, because he was able to, like I said, pull out the way, make David miss, come back with counters. You know? And Tony Bellew this time needs to be a little bit more prepared that he may see a more patient David Haye in this fight. And if he sees a more patient David Haye, then it may not be as easy to get those counter punches in. Because if David Haye plays that game where he's going to say, right, well, you commit first and then I will counter you. So we could see a bit of a chess match in this one rather than what we saw last time. You know, I mean, it could go the other way. You know, David Haye could lose all control and explode in that ring and decide, you know, he wants to knock Tony Bellew out. Let's just go for it. You know, you never know. It's you know, both these guys. I think especially David Haye, is unpredictable. You know, naturally he's a gunslinger. So when you're that kind of fight, it's like Amir Khan. Amir Khan's naturally a gunslinger as well. And you know, I know Amir Khan's been knocked out loads of times, but that's why he's been knocked out, because he's a gunslinger. And Tony Bellew lost the last. Haye lost the last fight because he is a gunslinger as well, and he wanted to prove that this guy's not on my level. Do I believe David Haye truly respects Tony Bellew? I think he respects what he did in the last fight, but I think it frustrates him and irritates him that he lost to Tony Bellew. Right? Really, I lost to this guy? That's how he feels. Who is this guy? Look what I've achieved in my career. I'm David Haye. You know, that ego has been, you know, that ego's been dented a little bit, you know, with David Haye, and you can see it, you sense it, you can see he feels it. You know, he does it, he you know, apparently in the first fight, and it happened at this press conference, in the first fight, for the first press conference, Tony Bellew was told he had to come out and sit in front of everyone, and then they announced David Haye. This time round, Eddie Hearn did it the other way around, and Tony said he didn't care. He says, oh, well, what's this? I'm going to go inside now. David's already sat down. I'm going to go sit down now. And Eddie said, no, wait. Eddie Hearn said it in an interview. He said, no, wait. Yeah. And then they properly announced Tony Bellew and Tony sat down. So David Haye actually had to do it this time himself. He had to go and sit there on his own in front of everyone, waiting on Tony Bellew. Do you see what I mean? And those sort of things when you're David Haye, you're right. You know, Tony Bellew's right. He's got an ego. Which fighter doesn't, but he does have a bit of an ego in that sense, and that's going to eat away at him, because he's going to look across the room and he's like, really, I had to come out here, sit in front of all these guys waiting for you. You know, Tony Bellew, alright, fair enough, respect, you beat me in the last fight, but I'm still David Haye. Do you understand? It's an ego thing, and it definitely irritates David Haye. So I think he respects the fact that Tony Bellew beat him in the first fight. I don't think he respects Tony Bellew completely as a man or as a person. They don't like each other. I think he respects what happened in the last fight, but it still eats away at him that he has to be the B-side. And you can see from this picture that I've got up the intensity between the two. Look at that look David's giving him. You can imagine what Tony Bellew is doing back, the kind of look he's giving back. You know, it was intense. You know, it wasn't loud like last time. It was subdued and quiet, but it was still intense. That rivalry is still there, and Tony Bellew keeps saying that you're gonna see the old David Haye. He's gonna pop up pretty soon. You know, that all this behaviour of him being really humble in defeat and all that sort of stuff, it's all gonna fade away pretty soon, and the real you'll see the real David Haye will resurface at some point. So it was an interesting press conference. I really enjoyed it. Wasn't any action in it this time, but it was still enjoyable. I think it's an intriguing fight. It is truly an intriguing fight. I think a lot of people will probably, I think a lot of people are betting, still betting. I don't know, I haven't looked at the bookies, but I think bookies have still got David Haye gonna win this fight because last time he was injured. Me personally, I wouldn't, you know, I'm not gonna make that same mistake again. Just like David Haye, I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I'm not going to say that. I thought as well, I thought 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds, 6 rounds max, and David Haye would have him. But it didn't work out that way, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. After what I saw from Tony Bellew in those first 5 rounds, you know what? He's shown he's an intelligent fighter. So we're going to have to wait until fight night to see that. But I don't. I think it personally, I think it's going to go to a decision. And either one of these guys are going to win it on the decision. I'll be very surprised if I see a knockout. And I won't be surprised if David Haye gets an injury again. So there's loads of things. I think it's a great rivalry. You know, the reason, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing David Haye win this one. And I'll explain to you why. Because if David Haye wins this one, we'll get a trilogy. I can't believe I just said that, but yeah, look, the first fight I thought, what is this comedy? Really? David Haye versus Tony Bellew? David Haye's going to blast him out in the first 6 rounds. And how wrong was I? You know, Tony Bellew proved to be a very good boxer, a very intelligent boxer, a very smart boxer. Give credit I will always give credit where credit's due. He is a very good boxer. A lot of people out there are going to be slating him, but go and watch those first 5 rounds of the first fight, and he'll show you. You'll see, if you know your boxing, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know, he showed a lot of skill in that first fight, so you have to give him credit for that. But I would like to see David Haye win this one. I don't know whether he will or not. I'm not saying that David Haye's going to win. I'm saying what I'd like to see. And I'd like to see David Haye win this one so he can get a third and final fight, a trilogy fight, to the decider, who's the better man in the ring. And yeah, so that's my point of view on this whole situation so far. We'll do a prediction video. I think I said a lot, maybe a bit too much when it came to the tactics and what happened in the last fight and what I think might happen and what each fight might need to do in the next fight. But I will do a separate video in terms of predictions. But I'm glad the fight's been made. I'm glad that, you know, we're going to see it again. And hopefully this time, not out of preference or choice, I hope David Haye probably wins it, because then we'll get a trilogy, because it'll be interesting to kind of see, you know, what happens. You know, if David Haye was to win, would Tony Bellew say, right, let's have a third fight, and would David Haye be like, yeah, all right, let's have a third fight, or would David Haye dismiss it and turn around and say, well, no, because the first fight you only beat me because I had an injury, and I proved now with a fully fit David Haye beats a fully fit Tony Bellew. Which will be very interesting as well to see if David Haye would do that, or would he turn around and say, actually, you know what, Tony, let's do a third fight, let's settle it, you know. But anyway, that's all I've got to say on this one for now. Feel free to leave a comment. Obviously, as always, I always say to you guys, like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you choose to subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you can get notified the minute I upload a new video. Alright guys, until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.